All right. Yeah. So basically, I'll get right to the point here. So what I wanted to do is I've got a little baseball podcast with one of my college teammates, and it's kind of just an excuse for us to talk baseball once a
Sure.
couple times a week and shoot the shit. But um, basically, I also have a project for school, and they let us do whatever type of yeah, whatever we wanted. And I wanted to have a conversation about analytics because this is something that I've been um, really sort of confused and also fascinated by within the
Sure.
past couple of years. Been a big baseball fan my whole life, and obviously a fan of you,
Appreciate
and
that, man.
just everything you've done in the game. So, yeah, I'll get right into it. Basically, so my first question is, a lot of this with analytics kind of started with your former team, the Oakland A's.
Yep.
Obviously, everybody knows Moneyball, and it was kind of iconic in that sense where really on base percentage, and you see these guys who aren't necessarily the big sluggers getting into this or, becoming stars on their team. And I guess my first question would be, as someone who came up in the game and came up with the Oakland A's, were you kind of privy to that more analytical, I guess, way of looking at the game as opposed to someone on other teams?
Not initially, not as I was drafted by the A's. It's not something that I was drafted by the A's and then was like, oh yeah, clearly I understand that this is what they saw in me based on how they go. Like I had no idea. No,
Okay.
like for me, it started and stopped with me being left-handed. That's why I got drafted because I was left-handed. I threw strikes and I had a changeup and I could add and subtract. That's why I got drafted. So as far as the analytics exposing or shedding light on something I was doing that other guys weren't, that's not why the A's drafted me. And when you get to your landing spot, and for me it was Vancouver, short season, none of those conversations are being had because you're young, you're fresh, you're just getting your first paycheck to play the game. So you're not really diving into how they're breaking you down as a commodity. You're just worried about your arm not falling off. You're worried about not hitting 071 and embarrassing yourself. You're not worried about how the front office and the brain trust is evaluating you as a player now and as a potential trade piece later. That wasn't any of the conversation. But Moneyball was a book that I read probably within the first 2 weeks of being drafted by the A's. And that was just to sort of gather that understanding. You see the movie, blah, 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 like you're disappointed in how the movie goes. But yeah, it was just an eye-opening experience for me to get a grip on and wrap my head around a forward train of thought.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and I wonder too, like, so once you get drafted, because I was thinking in my head too, when you're going through the minor leagues, it would seem like a lot of pressure to put on someone like being like, this is what you're doing in terms of your analytics. This is your, I mean, were you, is this more of a new thing like spin rate and all of
Oh
this?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay,
That was none of that.
okay,
None of that existed when I was there. None of that was part of the conversation. They weren't measuring that, right?
okay,
Like the high speed
yeah,
cameras, the high speed technology, the
right,
Rapsodos, the Edgetronics. None of these things were available and were being utilized in that fashion. So you're not gathering that information. That's why you hear TrackMan data back to X date, is because that's when they started utilizing it and started to go, you know what? What if we actually started to measure how fast this ball is spinning or how we can spin this ball faster? What if we started to look at that? How would you do it? We got to slow it down. We got to use these cameras. So none of that tech was being applied. It wasn't there. It wasn't even a thought, really.
right,
So
yeah,
it was just about feeling what you feel.
right. And that's something like as a pitcher myself, one of the things that my travel coaches in high school told me was one of the things you want to be able to do is like you want to be able to feel how that pitch feels coming out of your fingers at your best and then be able to repeat that. And it's kind of interesting because this is the first season that Ithaca College has they brought in a Rapsodo,
Oh, nice.
and it's been like it's
Now you're getting it.
insane to see what yeah now you can
Your
actually
spin
see what that
efficiency,
means
your
with
true spin rate, you're
exactly
you're you're getting a
yeah
feel for what that ball actually looks like coming out of your hand.
Oh yeah.
And that's where analytics come into play, and that's where the intellect of the athlete is going to be, it's going to be pushed, and it's going to be
Yeah.
tested, and it's going to evolve, because eventually, like, you will always have the outliers, and I was probably one of those guys. I mean, to an extent, I kind of, I give myself very little credit for what I do know, but I know what I know, and I know that if you put
Yeah.
me in a lab, I know that I can survive. I know how to find what I'm looking for. And that's what is going to be demanded and asked of the athlete moving forward. But to the point of outliers, there's going to be guys who go, I just throw it hard. That's why I'm good. I just throw, and that's going to be fine for them, because that's 100. You know what I mean? And you
Right. Yeah.
and that works. But for other people, it's going to be about, can you figure out how to fix your lack of efficient spin? Can you get your hand into a little better slot? Or a little better position? Can you get your arm in a different slot? Mechanically, are you sound? And that is going to be how these athletes evolve moving forward. If you don't have the capacity for it, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And another something that actually was, I think it was yesterday or the day before. I was watching. I'm a big Mets fan, and I was watching Lindor's presser,
Sure.
and they asked him about analytics, and
Mm-hmm.
one of the things he said, and I wonder if you agree with this, is um, analytics are great for preparation and for preparing to play the game that you love. But when they start to control, and he's, he's not necessarily a pitcher, so it's a little bit different. But when they start to control the game, that's when it becomes a problem. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the most recent example, you talk about Blake Snell, that's obvious.
Oh,
I wonder if it's different for you because he's an infielder and a hitter, but is that something that you agree with?
it is something I agree with.
Okay.
And analytics are in place to give you a basis, to give you a starting point, to give you a foundation for you to then devise a game plan according to the numbers that you are valuing and
Right.
applying to your opponent at that time. That is how analytics impact game to game, right? Numbers, matchups, defensive alignment. Here's where we think we could start here. From there, based on the metrics that you value, based on game situation, runners on base, less than 2 outs, what's the count, what's working well, all of those things get factored in real time for the coach that's positioning the defense as such. When it comes to evaluating your resources and what you have, that is where analytics becomes the most valuable tool for the front office, because analytics are essentially, and I don't know how many of the folks that are listening or you are familiar with the arbitration process, but arbitration is essentially to break down the player and tell them how bad they are so the team does not have to pay them as much. What analytics provide is a strong source of information for that team.
Wow.
And the player can spin it accordingly and use counter analytics to fight what that team is saying.
Wow.
But if you fast forward to free agency, or you shift to acquiring a player via trade, and we're comparing resources, now those analytics are designed to do that same thing. Here's why we're not going to give you our prospect, because the guy we're after doesn't do X, Y, and Z well. And you're almost going, well, then why in the hell are you calling me right now about this player? If
Right.
you're calling to tell me what he doesn't do well and why you won't give up what you won't give up, we're going about this. I think we're going about this the wrong way. We're doing this incorrectly. And the game starts to suffer because that mindset seeps over into the playing field, where you don't care that the guy on the mound has just sliced and diced in the biggest game of his life. None of that matters to you, and you're just going to go with the calculator again.
Yeah.
And that's, you can't play this game that way. You can evaluate the game this way. You can evaluate its resources this way. You can't play the game this way. Otherwise, you get this very boring brand of baseball that a lot of people are tired of. And Frankie Lindor, the infielder, the incredible athlete who doesn't want hits taken away from him on the right side of the infield when he's at the dish, absolutely wants to be able to move and fly around the infield. And he appreciates the athleticism involved in his position and in the game of baseball. And we should allow that to come out and show.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And I think that the thing that went through my head when you mentioned, obviously the Blake Snell incident is, and I'm sitting there thinking, I guess also a question, but for someone like you who played the game as long or at the highest level like you did, in my head, I'm like, I mean, this is a guy who's at, like you said, the top of his like he's at the this is the peak performance in the biggest game ever for that sport. And I'm just thinking, is there something I'm missing here? Or is this
Nope.
I mean,
No, you didn't miss anything.
yeah,
You watched and I've said this, managers, in my opinion, are left with two lists each
okay,
and every day of decisions that you can make. One list is a gut list, and the other list is the analytic list.
okay,
And if you make your decision based on the analytic list, you keep your job because that's what the list says to do. That's what the numbers say to do. That list came from up top. And so you're just following orders because guess what? That's exactly what each and every one of them would have done as well. They would have made that move on that analytic list, right? So win or lose, you're in the clear because you're just following the numbers. You're doing what they're telling you to do. But if you make a decision on the gut list and it doesn't work out, you're a buffoon. You're an idiot. The list told you what to do. The numbers told you what to do. Why did you do that? And your response is, well, I've got 30 plus years in this game and I've seen some stuff that maybe you haven't. And I've experienced some stuff that maybe you haven't because I've played the game and I've been a part of the game. And well, that's why I made that decision because I've been in this situation before and I've seen the decision that I'm about to make work out. And based on what I'm seeing right now, that's the decision to make. Your numbers aren't quantifying the fact that 2 out of the 4 pitches in this guy's arsenal out there are flat as hell and aren't doing anything. Your
yeah,
numbers don't know that. My 30 years in the game does. And that's why I'm making that decision. But if that gut decision doesn't work out, you're fired. You lose your job. Why?
wow,
Because the numbers just told you what to do. But if that gut decision does work out, your name's Terry Francona. And the reason I use that name is not because he's gone against any analytical decisions, because he's beloved and he's a great manager and he
yeah.
makes decisions that the game of baseball dictates. And he also does a good job of blending the analytics. But when you can do both of those, you're good at understanding where the numbers factor in.
Yeah, because that sort of that reminds me of Terry Collins in the 2015 World Series. You talk about Matt Harvey leaving him
Uh-huh.
out there for the ninth. I wonder if the analytics said to do the opposite thing and take him out coming through that, the third time in the order, all that jazz. But
Sure.
um I like myself, you're out, especially playing the game, you understand the emotion, I guess. And I wonder if, that definitely plays a part in some of that decision making. So I guess where I could go with this next question is there, again, for someone like you who played the game and now is what and played at a time where, like you said, the spin rate and everything and those more in-depth analytics weren't necessarily huge. Now that they are becoming more huge, do you see, and I guess huge in a sense that they're kind of starting to shift too far in the wrong direction, in a sense. Do you think that there's what do you think needs to happen in baseball in order to kind of bridge that gap between going too far, um, but also utilizing the stats and the technology in a proper way and use them to our advantage?
I think we're going to find there's going to that happy medium will be found,
Yeah,
and we will, whether it's starting to implement rules that limit the ability to shift defenses, whether it's something like that. um I think we're going to find the value in the numbers, and we're also going to find the value in playing a game. And what's tough about that is the word game is counterintuitive to the actual business that is
Yeah.
pro sports, right? So
Right.
you can ask me to just forget about some things and just go play the game because that's fun. And I would then counter with, yeah, it's $1 billion business. So I don't necessarily want to just whimsically go play this game. If
Right.
there's information that I can have that will help me beat you every time, I don't want to hide that from myself for the sport. You know what I mean? I got
Yeah.
$1 billion to win here.
Right.
So um I think what needs to happen is there has to be a limitation on how the numbers are applied in real time in competition, because you're not going to be able to disallow front offices to evaluate players with analytics. That's just silly. These numbers are what they are. You can
Right.
come up with your own algorithm in your head. So you're not going to control that. But how it gets applied to the game in a competitive sense, I think is where the balance is found.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because I wonder too when I guess when you're looking at the game where it is today, and a lot there's always this, myself being a baseball fan, I'll watch the game in whatever form it comes, but there's obviously the talk, and it's been the talk for the last couple of years, especially once, when the new commissioner has come in and, growing the game, making the game more marketable, making it, quick speeding up the pace of play. Um, and I wonder, I guess this is a little bit different than analytics, but is it do you think that because this is a conversation I had with another one of my teammates, but we were watching highlights and it specifically the Tim Anderson, that bat flip against the Royals,
Mhm.
and kind of you see these old school mentalities of baseball coming and clashing with kind of this new energy. And I wonder, and sort of the analytics are bringing that new age. It's a different energy, but it's kind of that new age form of baseball. I'm wondering, in your opinion, do you think that old school mentality, kind of those unwritten rules, do you think they still have a place in the game today? Or do you think that with kind of the new swagger and energy of some of the younger and newer players, do you think that that's kind of going by the wayside?
No, I do believe that there is still a place for some of the unwritten rules in the game that help young players understand the levels of respect that need to be there. And that's just about when you hear play the game the right way, a lot of people ask what that means. And some might say it's you hit a home run, you put your bat down, you round the bases, and you don't make a big scene. Well, that's not right. That's not wrong though, right? Um, Bat flipping is not right. It's not wrong though. It's the same exact thing. If you have this personality, show it. In that moment, if you're somebody with that personality, then you know what? Let me take you over here and also teach you about uh, respecting your opponent when you have this personality. Bat flip, throw the damn thing over the dugout if you want. I mean, don't do that, please.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
but know that if you're going to be the bat flipper, there's going to be some things that are coming your way if you don't understand this. Like if you flip your bat and you're staring at the pitcher and you're making eye contact with that guy, I just need you to understand how that can be perceived as a personal slight or attack.
Yeah.
You hit this thing 500 feet and you're staring at it, arms up, you're slapping your chest, yelling at the boys in the dugout. That pitcher on the mound instantly becomes a D bag should he drill you next time or drill somebody else next time.
Right.
And that's when understanding that can come into play, because if the kid who hits the homer for the first time and is excited about it doesn't understand that much and stares at the dude on the mound and makes it personal, and that guy on the mound might have an understanding of how things go, well, there's probably going to be some action, right?
Right. Right.
And you have a teammate hopefully in the dugout of the bat flipper that lets him know, hey man, just so you understand, we all loved it. You absolutely pissed on that thing. It was great. When you stared at him though, and like, kind of made it personal,
Yeah.
that's where the problem comes in. Next time, just look at us, scream at us. You know what I mean? Do
Mhm.
like whatever it is. And that's how a teammate can help clear that up.
Yeah.
But that's where understanding, like, play the game the right way, to me now today means you don't make it personal and you don't disrespect your opponent personally.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
also understanding that as a competitor in sport in this new day and age, celebration to this extent is now a part of the game. And you got to understand. It's like when you get down and you're going to get on the sticks, you're going to play Fortnite, you're going to play COD, whatever it is. You've got noobs who are running around out in the middle of nowhere, no idea, firing left and right, and they're going to die a very quick death. And they'll
Yeah.
learn, they'll learn, and that's kind of how that goes. They'll
Right.
learn, they'll learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess my last question, I've always wanted to flip this on your head since I've been listening to the podcast, but this is totally off topic, but if you yourself, it's my favorite question you ask all your guests, but if you could pick a moment for you that you can go back and be there in baseball history, um, what would that be for you?
The first day that they were like, all right, everybody understand all the rules? All right, let's do it. And they went out and they played baseball, like, for the
Yeah.
first time. Like, because that first time, what happens. Like, you get into a double play scenario and you execute it, and everybody's like, hold on, wait a minute here. Did he tag, like, because the rule says he's got to tag the bag, but he hit the bag and then he overran and he came back. Like, there's going to be some issues, and
Right
I
into
just
it. What is this? Yeah,
right,
right.
like, I want to hear all of that understanding, that explanation, like, just the physical movements of guys playing baseball at that time. Like, yeah, take me to the first game ever played after the rules were official and they're like, all right, here we go, game one, let's do it.
That's the best. That might be the best answer I've ever heard. I love
Because
it.
it would just be it would be an absolute circus in my
Yeah.
mind. Like, and just to hear it, the words that they're using trying to describe ye old 643, like, oh man, yeah, give it all to
It's
me.
it is when you just think about the way that they 60 feet, 90 feet, 60 feet, 6 inches. Like, where did these numbers come from,
Right,
and why are they so perfect?
right. Well, you understand why it's 60 feet 6 inches, right?
Oh, you tell me first.
Well, it was a miscalculation.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was supposed to be 66 feet, but it was
Oh, that's
read as
okay. Okay. Yeah.
it was read as 60 feet 6 inches, and so
Wow.
that's how we got here.
And it worked.
Sure, no, I'm not
That's
complaining.
awesome.
66 feet, and I'm pumping gas a hell of a lot earlier.
Yeah, same here. So absolutely. Well, Dallas, this was so much fun for me and just awesome. Thank you so much for your
No,
time. This
hey,
means
no
so much.
problem, man. No problem.
I
Good
really
luck with the
appreciate it.
podcast, man. If I could
Thank
give
you
you
so
any
much.
advice, I'll say this, dude. You love the game. You have passion for the game.
Yeah.
Don't change that.
Yeah.
Stay genuine, stay authentic, because you can't replace any of that, and you can't make any of that shit up either.
Absolutely. Keep up the awesome work. Thank you so much.
No problem, dude. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
You too.